Good evening, gentlemen. We're back today in the kitchen to ruin more of my wife's good cookware. Today we're making fire starters. This is something I had always thought was kind of common knowledge, but after talking to some buddies of mine, it turns out it's not exactly as widely known as I thought it was. So, common knowledge doesn't stay common unless you keep sharing it on. So hopefully this will teach a couple of people about these that, they hadn't heard about them before and keep the cycle rolling. They're pretty straightforward. You can make it all out of recycled common household materials, which is really nice. You're going to need yourself an egg carton, just the bottom, sawdust, dryer lint straight out of your lint trap on your dryer, and some wax. Now this is paraffin wax. This works really great. I picked up a pound of this on Amazon for $10. It's cheap. You can also use, half burned out tea candles or those 3-wick big scented candles, and they get real low to the bottom. That last little bit of wax never comes off. You can melt that and use that. All that stuff works really great. I just picked this up for the express purpose of making these, so I didn't have to harvest a bunch of, burned up candles. I just had a block of wax. Now, 1 pound block of wax will make you about 4 to 5 dozen of these things, depending on how heavy you put it in there. So it's a pretty good investment for $10. Sawdust, not strictly necessary. You can do it with the dryer lint alone. Sawdust or wood chips, though, just, adds something to the starters to keep them burning a little longer, burning a little hotter, gives them a little bit more fuel to work with, because this stuff burns up really fast. So this will sort of help hold that flame. So it's real simple. Very first thing we're going to do is we're going to get a double boiler set up going so we can melt our wax. So what you need is a pot of hot water. Get that boiling. And your vessel to go inside of it, which is where your wax is going to be contained. So first thing you're going to want to do, get your wax. I'm just going to cut a couple of chunks off of this one. I just made an 18-pack of these yesterday before I decided it would make a good demonstration video. So I'm not going to cut off a ton of this, but about 1/3 of a block will make an 18-pack. One of these big 18 egg packs. So adjust your amount of wax you're taking off accordingly, depending on how many you're making. This time I think I'm just going to make a couple for the sake of the video. So I'm not going to need a whole ton of wax. Now they will soak up a lot more than you think. So maybe a little bit more than that. And they'll hold just about as much wax as you're willing to put into them too. The dryer lint is very absorbent. There we go. So what you want to do, put your wax into your inner vessel of your double boiler, and especially if you're using glass, it's important to do this double boiler setup as opposed to direct heat, because you don't want to shatter your glass container. You could use a tin, like an Altoids tin or something small like that, or a mason jar or an old cup, any sort of thing that'll take the heat of melting the wax. So that goes back into your double boiler, where it will sit and hang out until the wax melts. So while we're waiting on that to melt, we're going to prep the carton. So what you want to do is just grab some dryer lint fresh out of your dryer. This I sort of collect over time. I just took an empty box when we ran out of dryer sheets one time, and I've been filling it up with lint. And you just take those, you drop them into your cups, like so, using the very professional handheld cell phone video method. So I'm trying to do this one-handed, so bear with me. And then take your wood shavings, sawdust, whatever, put a layer of that on there. Now, normally I'd do the entire dozen at a time, but like I said, this time I just made some, so we're not going to worry about it. Just going to do a couple. Good healthy amount in there. And then you want to put another layer of lint back over the top. You want your lint to be your outside material. You could start with a layer of sawdust and then put lint and then sawdust and then lint if you wanted to. But the lint has to be on top because that's what's going to take your spark. The sawdust won't take a spark. So there we go. Let's pack it in there nice and tidy. Alright, we got a good rolling boil going on this. See, our wax is almost entirely melted. Well, that was silly. Shouldn't have done that. Give it a stir. Make sure it's all melted down. See if I can bring this over here so you can see it. Don't stir this with anything that you care particularly about because it is going to get coated in wax. A couple of big pieces left. Once that guy goes, we're going to take this off the heat and we're going to pour it into our egg cartons. Alright, our wax is fully melted. Turn the heat off. Snag this guy out of here. And again, use a container that you don't care about being permanently coated in wax on the inside because you're never going to get all of it out. Take this guy over here and we're just going to pour it into our lint piles. You see it absorbs it right away. We're just going to fill those up. Quite a bit of wax in these. I made a little bit too much for just 2 starters. That's all right. Give them a good healthy coating. Let it soak in. Now, something to bear in mind is, see how these are completely saturated on top? You want to have some lint fibers exposed. So if you take another dry piece, you sort of press it in there so it'll stay put, but you leave some dry lint out. That's important because if you don't do that, you'll certainly be able to light it with a lighter, but you can light almost anything with a lighter. This way, you'll be able to catch a spark on a ferro rod. So those are kind of like your candle wicks there. So now we just got to let these cool and they'll be all good to go. Alright, so these are the fire starters we just cooked up together. Now, you might be wondering, why do you want to go through all the effort to make these sort of fire starters as opposed to just using a regular old Bic lighter and maybe some crunched up newspaper or some kindling you find on the ground in order to start your campfire or what have you? Well, these have got a couple of really good, important benefits to them. First of all, they're compact. They're not that big at all. I mean, it's the size of half of an egg, right? They're lightweight, so you don't have to worry about carrying a bunch of heavy stuff with you. And they are not going to spill, unlike, say, liquid fuel might. They don't smell bad, unlike Esbit tablets do. They're crush-proof, so you can pack them in your bag. You don't have to worry about them getting ruined. And, best of all, they are waterproof. We're going to come back to that. If you make them right, you can even light them with a ferro rod. So, we're going to light this guy. We're going to see how long he burns. It should be longer than 10 minutes, which is another major benefit of these. Because they burn for so long and they're so difficult to put out, you can start a fire with, wetter materials. So if you're stuck out in the rain while you're camping and everything's soggy, this is a great option to get that wet tinder going. If it's not wet, you can start without having to make a bunch of smalls and tiny little sticks and twigs and really fine matter in order to get your fire going. This thing will start logs about as thick as your forearm, just straight. So you can just build your fire, throw 1 or 2 of these underneath of it, light them up, and it'll take itself off. They're also really good for around the house. They make really great starters for charcoal chimneys for your grill. They're just real handy. They're convenient as all get out. So this is why we left that little wick of unwaxed dryer lint at the top. We're going to strike her with a ferro rod. If I can do it without obliterating my entire setup here. Of course, I was too slow. Didn't get it going in time. We got some more fluff over here. There we go. So start the timer. See how long this guy burns. Yep, still burning underneath. Just wanted to make sure it was lit well. It sure is. Now, like I was mentioning before, even if they're soaking wet, you can still get them to take a flame. So what you do is you want to take your knife or a stick or your fingernail, you want to dig down into here past this outer soggy layer of wax to expose the dry wax underneath. Now this, you're probably not going to be able to get started with a ferro rod, but in fairness, it is literally dripping wet. However, you shouldn't have any problems at all getting it going with something like a Bic lighter, which you should be carrying with you when you're camping. Camping anyway. Camping. A little bit of Wisconsin snuck out. That guy there. See if I can do this without burning myself. Be nice if the camera would focus, huh? There we go. It's thinking about it. Just like that, our literally dripping wet fire starter is ready to go. Woo. Flames are blowing back towards me from the other one. It's not sure where to focus. There we go. Well, it's still burning. I thought that it might have gone out, but she's still trucking. So there you go. You see how long those things burn. If you can't get a fire started with 10 to 15 minutes of uninterrupted flame, as intense as that was, whatever situation you found yourself in, you're in a bigger problem than just getting a little fire starter to work. You're not going to get any fires started with anything short of a jerry can of diesel fuel at that point. Yeah, you can see that the one that was soaking wet, as soon as the fire takes, it boils the water right off, and they just burn, as well as the ones that are completely dry. These things are super handy. They're real convenient. They're real cheap. They're easy to make. And I hope you guys get a lot of good use out of them. Have a good one and stay safe out there, gentlemen.